Welcome to Season 3 of Connecting with Purpose. In our first 2 seasons, we explored how leading and living with purpose unlocks unique potential for us and our teams. This season, we're diving into how purpose helps us navigate change, build resilience, and elevate our ongoing performance, well-being, and impact. A special focus I'm really excited about is to highlight the transition of elite athletes into new opportunities. By raising awareness around this largely untapped talent pool, we'll bridge opportunities with businesses to create meaningful connections, drive value, and deliver lasting impact. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome everyone. This is the last episode of Season 3 of Connecting with Purpose, and I'm super excited to welcome a really smart, talented friend of mine, Phil McGeoghan, as our final guest for this season. And this is essentially concluding the focus around the challenges and opportunities of athlete transition, and follows on from a great conversation for those of you that heard that we had last month with Jacob Brown. And Phil is also another former MFL player who's super committed to making an impact. And Phil had 4 seasons as an NFL athlete in the early 2000s. The Jets, Oakland Raiders, Denver Broncos, New Orleans Saints, and then injury unfortunately ended his playing career. But he turned his hand to becoming a really accomplished coach, starting in college and then to the Miami Dolphins, Buffalo Bills, LA Chargers. And most recently, Phil was the offensive coordinator in the UFL's St. Louis, with the UFL St. Louis Battlehawks team, and took them to the playoffs last season. And I'm lucky because Phil and my better halves were great friends.
Right.
And as it happened, Phil then moved in down the street to our little local Erie, Colorado here a few years ago.
Yeah, it's great.
We've spent some awesome quality time together since. And one of the things I love about Phil is that both on and off the field, he's really, really passionate. And this is going to come through today. Just about fostering the growth and nurturing talent, and really more specifically empowering elite level athletes to just take ownership of their careers and their lives and their potential. In his latest enterprise, Turnkey Athlete Solutions, is designed to do exactly that. And we're going to learn a little bit more about that today. So, Phil, great to have you here, mate. Thank you for being here on Connecting with Purpose.
Wow, what an intro. That's probably one of the better ones I've ever had in my life. That was unbelievable. You know, very nice, very nice. I didn't even know half that stuff. Maybe it's the concussions. I don't know.
Well, I hope not, but yeah, it's funny, isn't it, when other people introduce us, you're like, yeah, you know, you could do that for me again. Well, Phil, let's dive in, because I'm actually really interested to hear these myself, the magic moments, and our audience is generally familiar, but for any new folks here, magic moments are times when we look back on life, and with the benefit of time, we would score those moments a 10 out of 10. And it might be because they were just incredibly positive, inspiring, high performance moments, or actually it could have been really overcoming some major challenges or trauma. Sure. But it's because of how we handled those moments in the moment, and because of the impact they had on what came next in life, are the reasons that we would score them 10 out of 10. And so there's 3 questions, Phil. It's a real cheater, because I'm going to ask you for 3 magic moments, but there's 3 questions for each, which is, what are the moments? What was it about them that made the magic? And if you had to give them a name, what would you call them?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you know, the way I answer questions is only one at a time, but I will answer all those in a very holistic way, right? So I titled the first moment 4th and 5, right? So to me, like, trying to be succinct, you know, with the title, you know, and all that. But here, let me just take you through 4th and 5. So I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm playing a little bit of varsity football, you know, contributing, you know, on special teams primarily. And we have a good team. You know, we're in a championship game. It's late in the season. And so I had not caught a pass in varsity the whole year. I had caught some on JV and played some secondary work, but I hadn't really contributed from a statistical standpoint. And we are at the 15-yard line. It's 4th and 5. We're down by 4. So we got to go for it. And they call my number, you know, like, and so my sophomore quarterback was like one of my best friends. I'm a sophomore receiver. He fires that thing, a slant route, like I never forget, caught it for about 8-9 yards, down to like the 6-yard line. And then we ran it in, won the championship. And I think in my mind, that was the first time I felt like accepted by like the older guys. And like, I felt like my performance helped like the varsity team. So like from there on out, it was different for me, but you have to catch your first pass. You got to have your first positive moment, like not every superstar like just comes out the womb, catching 15 passes for 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. You got to start somewhere. So 4th and 5 was my start. Awesome.
Absolutely love that one. That's a great one to kick off with. And in short, having your first moment and feeling accepted, which then I'm sure changed your mindset and everything that came next. And we'll dive into that. All right. What about number 2?
Number 2, I said home meet high jump. So home meet high jump. This is fast forward to my junior year in college, right? So I'm at the University of Maine in Orono. It's a very logistically difficult place to travel to. So we did not host many meets at all. So we would host 1 indoor meet a year, maybe. And you have to remember, I'm a scholarship football player, but I'm participating on the track team, indoor and outdoor. I am the captain of the track team, but like I have no financial, compensation that's coming from track besides the shoes they give me. And at that time, a free pair of Nike trainers was enough for me to do sport.
The pre-nil days.
the pre NIL days, right? So we had this one home meet, and I was a 7-foot high jumper. I jumped 7 feet my very first meet in the cold weather, my freshman year. So, but most people just heard of this. There was no videos and stuff like that was like floating around the internet of anybody doing anything. It was like 2000, and it wasn't even. It might have been 1999, and so I remember the field house just being packed with like students, and they were there to see me jump, and they wanted to see me jump 7 feet, because that's the school record. They wanted to see it indoor. They wanted so when I remember like my ability to perform, like, in front of these people, because I had a PR, everyone's doing the slow clap, you jump, you make it, you set the school record. And I just remember feeling like, because the individual sport is different than team sport. And I'm a team sport guy, but that in that moment, it was hard to quantify, but like when everybody's like fixating all of their attention and energy on you and trying to help you, will you over a height that you've never cleared before, and it's something you've never done before, I realized the collective energy of that situation propelled me to perform. And then at that point, I realized like, I'm never going to have stage fright. I'm actually going to utilize, the energy of the crowd and the situation to propel me into like, I'm a performer. I want to get this done for everybody. I want to get this done for myself. I want to win this meet for our school. So it just started to kind of clarify some things for me. Because again, in football, you can hide a little bit for a quarter or two. You don't catch a pass, your running back scores, but in track, either you get over the bar or you don't. You either run the time or you don't. So it was a really cool moment to help build just some confidence, honestly.
I'm scribbling notes on these because we're going to come back to all 3 of them, but I just scribbled down kind of like pressure divided by energy, like that crowd energy enabled you to perform, right? Because instead of stage frighting, just sort of freezing to the pressure of full house, it's just me, I've got this high standard, I'm trying to beat a record here. Instead, you took the energy from everybody and sort of individualized it, honed it, and used it to will you on.
Exactly. And I can remember the process because I had a routine that I would not break, right? So I had a certain song, my headphones, so I couldn't hear anybody. But I knew, because the earlier heights I knew I'd make, 6'6", they're going already. 6'8", they're excited, they're clapping, everyone's doing it. 6'10", now everyone's juiced. So I know what's going to happen when it's 7-1 or 7 change. I know that they're going to still be caught up even louder. So I just was doing my thing. And then when the headphones came off, the energy of the crowd was like, it was almost like intoxicating, right? Because of just like, it gave me goosebumps, and like I could still almost feel the rhythm of the music, but it was now the rhythm of the crowd. So it was kind of a kinetic energy that was like just pulsing through. It was a small field house, it's not a huge place, and people are all over each other. My teammates, I got 105 football teammates, another 100 track teammates, plus the student body, plus the professors, and it just seemed like at the moment it was all for me, and it was at that moment, but. You don't know what you're going to do. Turtle up, no height, good, you don't really know, until you do it. And then you realize, oh, I'm a performer. I can do this. I love this.
I know, and I have some aspects of me that can perform, and I know that no matter how engaged the crowd was, I could get under 7 feet. Like I could get under there without banging my head, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe 3.5 feet, maybe for me, but that's amazing. Okay, and we'll come back to these because I'm going to get time all together. But what's the third one?
Oh, good. This it's pretty simple. Bronco tunnel. So my rookie year, I was with the New York Jets in training camp, make it to the last cut, get cut. 9/11 happens the week later. I'm in Oakland. I'm on the practice squad. Things are kind of funny. The world is funny. I get cut off the practice squad because at that time they would not pay the guys if they were on a bye week. So they're not practicing, so they'd cut you. So Coach Shanahan and Rick Smith, the general manager at the time, wanted to work me out, which I knew would be a little bit of a risk with the Raiders if I would have left. So I took the risk. And then the following week, Coach Shanahan activated me to the active roster. So I rode with Gus Farrat, who was our backup quarterback, from the team hotel. And I just remember do my normal routine. And my heart was racing a little bit during pregame. I was more tired than I usually am. So I was like, oh man, maybe this is a little bit, too big for a guy from Maine and, UMaine and from Massachusetts. And then I got to the tunnel when we were before the national anthem, you ran out for the first time. And I got emotional, because I was reflecting back on all of the moments and all of the trials and all the difficulties that have occurred in my life. And that I'm here, against all the odds. And I'm going to go out in Power as the field now, but it was Invesco at the time. I'm going to run out in Invesco and I'm going to go contribute, to an NFL team regular season game. And that was, and I was all teared up. And I remember coming out of the tunnel, all was one and, just having the game and everything was fine. But I just remember very rarely in my life do I stop and appreciate in the moment, something that has happened or fully be like, wow, understanding my little rural high school in Western Massachusetts to a remote FCS program to the Denver Broncos, who won the Super Bowl 2 years before, and you're running out of the tunnel with your teammates and guys like Terrell Davis and Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey and Bill Romanowski, just unbelievable athletes and players, and you're your teammates, and you still have contact with some of these guys to this day. So I knew in the moment how special it was, and then I was able to click out of it, compartmentalize, and go do my job.
Yeah, brilliant. What I love about these three is how they kind of cycle back to each other. And if I was to summarize them all in one word, it's around kind of mindset, right? And because that tear up moment in the tunnel of appreciation comes all the way back to the feeling accepted on the team at
Amen.
4th and 5 and catching it and winning, and from that feeling of acceptance, knowing that you just grow into your own shoes and actually go on to shine and outperform, and then not just do that in a team setting, but under the pressure of when the entire spotlight of an entire field house for that moment in time is on you, but being able to embrace that energy in a way and internalize it that enabled you to succeed, and then it kind of brings you all the way back to then literally the best of the best, which is coming out of the tunnel and to contribute in the NFL. So I appreciate those, and I just wondered whether to that point of kind of mindset and the importance of that to performance, right? And we can talk about this in sports; it's the same in life and in business.
Right.
What are some of the things you've learnt along the way, whether it's on that segment of life or since, that have enabled you to be able to get that mindset into the right place? And if you like, what has worked for you in that way?
Sure. I think routine, I have these little routines, that keep me regulated emotionally. Everybody's different. So I think that understanding who you are. One thing I've always done a good job of in relation to competition and performance has been to understand what I'm feeling, where it's coming from, and have some pretty precocious self-talk at a young age, because all the clinical data would suggest what I did was correct, but I was just doing it off of necessity because I wasn't receiving it, right? So you're driven and you're talented and you have bigger visions and goals. Like I could see where I told my mother when I was like 10 years old, I'm going to play in the NFL. She's a wonderful, supportive person, but she also is a very realistic German-Irish woman who gave me every piece of statistic that you could imagine of why that's not going to happen. And I need to go study, right? Which is appropriate for the time frame, but I didn't listen. Like I knew more than my own mother did about my own self, right? So at that point in time, I was 10. So at 14, 18, 22, like it's nothing for me to believe in myself. I already believed in myself before, the adults did.
Which is really interesting because I had almost the opposite experience. Where my entire athletic, educational, and ultimately life trajectory changed at the age of 11 or 12 because somebody else believed in me. And just by them believing in me and giving me an opportunity to lead, enabled me to completely see myself differently. And from that point on, like I had that complete and utter self-belief to just project forward.
Yeah.
Do you feel that self-belief, was that something you feel you've always had, or was there a moment that
I think when you're in like a trauma response center, when you're like you're young, it's hard to find your stability, so you have to like root it in something. And so for me, it was always in sports. It was like the area that I could just be free, where I wasn't being stressed about the way I look or the way my family dynamic was, or what's happening here, or my clothes. It was like I could just go out and do something better than you. And that's what I loved about sports is like, yeah, genetics are a big important part of it, right? And I got good genetics. I was a good, talented kid. My kids are big and talented. It's just what it is. I understand that, but that's not the point. The point is like you have to, depending on your situation, sometimes you're gonna have to like fortify your mind at a younger age, but that does have some consequences as you age, and those are real, and I know those very well.
I appreciate that, and I'm just thinking, how that applies, beyond the athletic field. It's exactly the same thing, right? Having that belief rooted in something that you have the opportunity to overcome your fears and experience freedom in. Once you experience that freedom, that just keeps fueling you, right? And so for you, that was sports and athletic performance. But it can be different things to different people. But the challenge for a lot of people is to understand what that thing is, right? What is that thing that you rooted in, that you committed to, that you're going to build upon? And so if we fast forward then, you obviously had this elite athletic career and then morphed into the coaching career. And I say morphed because that's kind of really underestimating some of the challenges of that. And I was just wondering, what were some of the challenges? You had an injury, right? And it's a sucky way to have to stop your playing career. What some of the challenges that you experienced and had to overcome to enable you to get to a place of even being able to be a successful coach?
Yeah, the transition was really tough, Mark. Like for me in particular, and I didn't have my undergraduate degree yet, so I just couldn't go get like a W-2 employment, somewhere. I wasn't hireable yet. I had no experience, so I was struggling with just purpose, right? And what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? So I was hurt, and I knew I was hurt. I was going to miss the whole year. So I got my real estate license, and I started to work with, first residential. And then I was like, I like commercial. So, but the reality is like even finding the employment didn't address, the sense of mourning and loss and grief that I had around my former self. You had that long introduction. And I gave you 3 stories of performance. That person, I had to bury him in the backyard. You know what I mean? Like that person is not here. He's not coming back. So when I say not well, what do I mean by that? In specificity, drinking too much, not sleeping enough, eating foods I never really ate before in that type of quantities, not working out, spending too much time out at the club. I'm 25, I can go out, but you know what I mean? A Wednesday night till 2 and 3 in the morning, probably not the best idea for a working professional who's trying to launch a new career. But I struggled. I just struggled with purpose for a couple of years. I did some real estate and some private equity stuff and got licenses and things like that, but there was a void missing. So I called my college coach back up again. I told him I don't have a degree. I'm coming back to school to get my degree. And if you want me around to help, I'd be more than happy to help, any way you want to. So he's, of course, come back up, I'll have something for you. So it was a volunteer position and then $12,000. So for 2 years, I made $12K and I got a degree, so like that was a sacrifice I had to make to get myself back up and running. I had to surround myself with the structure and discipline of Jack Cosgrove, my college football coach. And he had to yell at me every once in a while as a young coach to get me to understand what's the most important thing in the moment, and is serving the kids and serving the team and all these things. So it was back in that framework where, it's structure, it's team, and Jack was a disciplinarian, but he was sensitive too, and he cared about you, but it was going to be his way. He's a Boston Irishman, and that's just what it was.
And then, so if you keep kind of pulling on that thread, that sounds like it was a bit of a bridge to from the morning of, okay, I can get a qualification, I can get a W-2 job, I can go out and party and not take care of myself and start earning some money, but I still haven't gotten over my wound, right? I still haven't. I'm still grieving the loss, and until we have that, as John Regis would say, that until we've had that reckoning, that right. Part of me is not coming back in that same way, right? What this experience you had going back to college and starting the coaching, you referred to purpose a couple of times. Like, what was it that helped you, if you like, find your way again and find your new identity and find your purpose?
Easy. It was easy for me because I came from a small college, a small high school, in the grand scheme of things, and I knew that if I could go back into a time machine and coach myself in high school and college, I would have been a high pick. You know what I mean? I felt like there was a gap of an educational and, whether it's training, nutrition, sleep, hygiene, all these things. Like when you're at Alabama, you probably have access to those. If you're at University of Maine, you probably don't have as a robust, stack for health and fitness, and information in 1998. Right. So I think like in 2007, when I started to, 6 and 7, I started to kind of get myself, back into the coaching mindset. It was about, okay, I know some underserved markets of players at my own college, and I want to go in there and I want to teach these young guys everything that I learned over the last 4 years in the NFL, so that they have an opportunity to have that same deal. And it's funny because I had one player, they gave me one, I had one scholarship tight end, and then they redshirted the other one. The one scholarship tight end's name was Matt Mulligan. He played 10 years in the NFL. I had him for that 1 year. That was at Maine. So, and he would tell you, if you had him on here, like his belief in me, was a catalyst for him to feel like he could do it. So like once I had that immediate gratification that somebody was in the NFL, now I'm at another school, and then I'm with the Dolphins and I'm hugging him at the 50-yard line before the game, and he's on his 5th year. It's pretty cool. Those types of things. So for me, it was simple. It's like, where am I most needed? Well, I'm most needed not at Alabama, not at Tennessee. I'm most needed at Maine. I have the most impact there. I have to serve and lug Gatorades by my own pictures on the wall. Like cases of them, Mark, you know what I mean? Stacking them, putting them on the bus, getting equipment off the bus, like at Navy Prep the year after that, I was the equipment manager. I'm watching high school kids, dirty draws, you know what I mean? Like, but that's the best impact I thought at the time. I said, well, shoot, like let's impact people. And that's what I just focus on, helping people be the best in their position, best in their craft, teach them financial literacy so they know how to save $1 when they make $1. A lot of things, everything that I could possibly pour into these young people, I did that. I mean, I had them over to my house. I cooked dinners for them. I ordered food. I ordered fights. Anything I would do to keep them out of the club and in with me, I did it. I tricked them.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can say that, right? And I appreciate you saying that with a tongue in cheek, because it's actually a lot more than that, right? There's so much passion there for you. Firstly, rolling his sleeves up and providing what's needed, right? I can do this, and this is what they need, so let me go after that and do it. But there's a passion for this, the human connection, the nurturing, essentially the gifting of this belief to other people, so they believed in themselves, and the hugging on the NFL 50-yard line before the game, right? That's just probably another magic moment I'm sure you had. But
certainly, there's so many of those.
If you were unpacking that, let's just say that part of your service was this impact of where it was needed. It's part of the passion around this sort of connecting with people. And we say at Purpose Fused, while the definition of purpose is living intentionally at the intersection between your passions and impact, the formula for getting there is passion plus impact plus application. Like, what were some of the passions that you had? What was the impacts that you were looking to have? And so how would you kind of unpack your purpose, whether now or whether it goes back all the way to then?
So like modeling a particular lifestyle and pattern is important. So I've already used this product at University of Maine, so I understand it. I understand the intricacies of it. I also utilize that platform to get myself a pension in the National Football League, right? So when you go back there, people are like, well, how did you do it? You're like, okay, well, this is what you do to do that. So for me, it was always about like making sure that they understand it's possible. Like there was a player from my hometown, Mike Flynn. I was from Agawam, Massachusetts. He was a lineman at Maine, but my freshman year in college, he was with the Ravens on the practice squad, and he ended up getting promoted to starting center and all these things. So I watched him play when I was still in college when they played the Patriots. So just seeing Mike do that, at Foxborough and watch him play, knowing he's from down the street from me, it was like, wow, like he was in the practice squad, like just seeing somebody from my town who went to the same college, like my little town, and, and going to a little tiny FCS school in the farthest north place in the world, it seemed like to me, it was like I wanted the kids to know that it's possible. Because there was a big drought, Mike was a lineman, and there was a big drought between like Mike and the next guy who had made it to the NFL. And Mike won a Super Bowl with the Ravens and, all that eventually. But at the end of the day, it was just about trying to make sure that the guys know that it's possible if you do X, Y, and Z. That weight room, that little weight room that's underfunded, that's where we did all of our power cleans, hang cleans, and squats. And guess what? The 45-pound plate weighs the same as it does with the Broncos facility. So get your butt under that squat and let's get some reps in. You know what I mean? So there was that. And then obviously we talked about impact, but in specificity around like passion and impact, for me, if I'm passionate about something, I'm going to impact it in a major way, because I'm not going to sell you on anything that I don't already believe in or use, or like, it's just not me. I cannot do it. So when I'm trying to tell you something about impact, it's because I'm passionate about it and I know it's going to help you, or going to alleviate problems that you might have in the future, or it's going to give you an edge on something, or maybe it's just a suggestion or just a tip or a trick that I've seen, some of these great players, like, was fortunate to have Jerry Rice as a teammate in Oakland, it's the best receiver of all time. Maybe some things that Jerry Rice taught me, you might want to learn, as a receiver at Maine. There's like an information backlog, and the coach do the best they can, but the better instruction is going to be at Michigan or Ohio State. That's just the truth, so I thought I could give them some instruction that would, in those early stages of my career, and my college coach saw what was happening, and he was like, well, I'm going to lose you pretty quick. I said, probably, but I'm going to do the best I can while I'm here.
Yeah, there's actually so much in what you just said there, and if I kind of pull it back to those elements of the formula, the sort of the passion, the impact, and the application, they're all very prevalent because, and we've had a couple of conversations before, right? And so I happen to know that like one of the ways Phil sees the world, right? One of the things that energizes Phil the most is in what we would call in GC index terms, he's a game changer. Game changers see and believe and are driven by possibilities. That's your passion. Your passion is in the possibilities. It's helping people see and believe in the possibilities, right? And then the impact is that they're able to realize those possibilities, like become the best version of themselves by the application, which is appreciating and committing and leveraging what you have. Like, what resources do you have? Because that's what you have. So let's appreciate those resources. Let's use those resources that enable me to continue to improve and move towards those possibilities. But first, you've got to help people see them, right? And that's the key thing. And to me, that's just the essence of your purpose, is helping people see and achieve those possibilities by utilizing the resources they've got,
Yeah.
And so I appreciate it.
That's a philosophy too that like comes with time. But also it's a little bit intrinsic, because remember, at the 10-year-old, Phil told my mother, I'm going to play in NFL regardless of what she said, so like I would just say this: if you have like a child who has, lofty goals, just nurture, just say, yes, that's great, I can't wait, I'll help you get there. Well, how do you help you get there? Well, we need to make sure we qualify for the NCAA clearinghouse, so we got to make sure we have the best grades possible. So there's ways to phrase things that are better in 2025 than they were in 1985, so which is fine. And I think you got to grade in a curve, right? Or, I know more about parenting, so I should be a better parent because there's more books and more availability on the internet and all your apps to like know more, right? So I think at the end of the day, that's all true, but it's also part of the journey, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I was listening to a podcast literally yesterday, and it just all started out with this sort of the fear of failure, the drive to have to prove everyone wrong. And while that can ignite you in a direction, it will never sustain you, right? Sure. Fear won't sustain you, and trying to prove everyone wrong won't sustain you. You didn't achieve what you achieved to prove people wrong. You achieved it because you genuinely believed it. And that's a big difference. The possibilities pulling you forward versus.
But again, nothing is an equal measure. Nothing's in a vacuum. We don't measure our emotions out in 1/8 of anger, 2/6. So
I'm not good enough at math for that.
Here's what I will say though, and this is important to understand when you're talking about the way you motivate yourself intrinsically, right? Because using the doubters, like there were times, where I wasn't about, I'm going to be in the NFL. I was like, hey, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'm going to burn it down, and guess what? Most of the time when I got in that mindset, I was the best I had ever performed, right? Like I just was a killer. So, but that's a corrosive fuel source, Mark, that you cannot continue to access. So you're saying this, but I'm telling you the truth about this in a very palatable way. Like, it's like filling your car up with fuel that's going to 93 octane, but it's going to rip your engine apart after a couple of years, right? Because it doesn't put you in the peak performance state the way that you would want to, because again, you're continuously accessing painful memory, almost having immersion therapy with your own trauma around people that might have called you something outside of your name that really bothers you, that really elevates you and makes you want to go nuts. But what you're trying to do is really tough, like running down on a kickoff in the NFL. Right? Like there's all kinds of people trying to kill you. So sometimes you might have to access the darkness, Mark, to do a dark 100%. Activity, so like I would say that trying to figure out ways to access that, okay, I believe it well before another human being sees it, because I have great faith in my own abilities. That's different than like, okay, this person, I really have an axe to grind with them, or I'm going to show everybody wrong, or I don't ever want to go home because these people are rude and they've said things to me that really have affected me in a negative way. Like those types of memories for performance, I would caution athletes about staying there too long.
Yeah, 100%. I look, there's so much power in the dark side, right, of those characteristics when they're pointed towards something that has meaning. And my rugby experience was similar. I'd say that the competitiveness and not so much the need to prove people wrong, so much as the need for approval, right? I was such a confidence player. That's what got me to playing at the top level. But actually, I never quite had the confidence at the top level because I was seeking it externally and it didn't come. And guess what? I didn't know how to generate it myself when I was at that level. And so that you need to access those things in a way that is generative, not where you're relying on it coming in from the outside, which is the real challenge. So if we're switching hats a little bit, still on the similar thread, but kind of just thinking about all of these athletes that you've seen, that you've coached, that you've supported, that you've nurtured, having been one yourself, when they're going through their transition, there's two sides to this, right? One is, what opportunities do they bring? What strengths do they bring to, if you like,
Right.
to the corporate world? And what are some of the things you see that they need to take care of in order to get there? This is going to bridge into the turnkey conversation a little bit, but I was just interested in the context first, in terms of sort of why you've set that up and what we see as the opportunities there.
Yeah, I think the reality of trying to transition from, you know, something as high level as like the NBA or, you know, or the NFL, it's you have to find something that pulls you out of bed, Mark. Like the opportunity, like it has to, you can't be like, oh man, like I have to go do this, like in that state, because you remember we're still mourning. We're still like mourning the loss of our own purpose. So like, you know, I'm talking about, this is like within the first 2 years of retirement, first 18 months per se, you know, where you're just trying to find the next chapter. So I think the biggest thing, if you're ever like in one of those chairs to consult one of these like high net worth, high level people, it's like the finances aren't usually the motivator for most of the guys that are exiting the NFL in the current business model. You know, it's just the money's crazy. You know, but they're not going to have, they're going to have this, it doesn't matter. Like depression doesn't like check your bank account before it attacks you, you know, it just attacks you because you're mourning loss of purpose. So if in order to combat that, the only way to do it is to find something that you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be anything specific, but like, that's why you just expose people to like, you might have to go slow. You might have to use, you know, multiple meetings, and all these things, but you just have to go slow, get in the well with people, let them know you're there. I never really smother people. I just check on them. I send them a positive, uplifting text, you know, just letting them know that they're worth more in the world than just what their sport is, you know, and just highlight maybe a couple of their, you know, their gifts, you know, and then most of the guys find it quickly, you know, once you nurture that side of them. And some guys might just go to the Y and start doing football camps, you know, for free and volunteering. And like, I want to coach, or I want to do private coaching. I don't want to be in your world where you're working 18-hour work days. Coach Phil, you helped me go from an undrafted free agent to a 4-year, $44 million player. I don't need to go coach, and I never will coach, but I want to coach the youth and how to run routes, because again, I can help and impact them and still have my whole day free. Right. So I got former players that are doing that. So they're coaching, but they don't need the W-2. They don't need the benefits. They've made millions and millions of dollars, and they're intelligent people. So they find that same bucket is full to the exact same level. But because I was an undrafted free agent who never got a second contract, and this person was an undrafted free agent who got a $44 million second contract, his coaching path out of necessity is going to be different.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. So when you're helping people sort of, like you said, get into the well with them a little bit, go slow, just
Right.
maybe encourage, oh, have you thought about this? Have you tried this?
Right.
What, talk us through a little bit, the thinking behind, your latest venture, Turnkey Athlete Services. You know, what's that all about? How's that going to help kind of, well, if you like, help the world, but like, how's it going to really nurture this potential huge talent base of athletes?
Right. I think it was that first 2-year gap before I got to Maine, where I got hurt with the Saints. Like this venture was a kind of passion by that experience, where I just didn't have, there was no resources. You know, like there are some resources, and the PAC, founded by Caleb Thornhill, is one of the most impactful athlete services groups in the world, right? So there's that, and they can anybody can join that for free, and you can basically just immerse yourself on the app or the website for the entire day and learn, and they help you get to your benefits. So you're getting your severance pay. That's way different than it was when I was there. But like I told you, just because you have resources doesn't mean you're going to use them, right? So at the end of the day, I think it's like, I'm on this app. Here's a link. Check it out. You know, like, so you just like start getting them to be a part of the athlete community. Like the biggest area we come in is called the locker room. So everybody comes into the locker room. You know, it's virtual, but it's trying to replicate that support staff. And I mean, they had unbelievable speakers, they have unbelievable presentations. So I just feel like putting people in those positions is important. The problem is that it's only for professional athletes, so there's a gap. We're missing something. And what's happening is right now we have a student athlete population that's been in college for longer than any other population ever has because of COVID. So everybody at scale was offered an additional year of eligibility. Nowadays, and I know this from my days as just a head coach at CU and putting, all the players on the entire roster and sitting through hundreds of hours of academic meetings, you understand like the real scope of what these guys are doing in college, and they are loaded down with classes. We get them graduated in usually 3 years. So if you're there for 6 years, I got people that are onboarded already at Turnkey that have MBAs, are 22 years old, and are on there working on another degree in their 6th year at another university. So really impressive people. And they're still in college. They're going to be out there till May, and they'll have 2 degrees. So we're at a weird space where the job market's a little bit tough for people without 2 years of experience, but the people coming out have this unbelievable. They're overeducated, for the jobs that they would be actually getting, and they just don't have a lot of places to go, Mark. So at the end of the day, we provide that guidance. That's servitude. It's a servitude thing. We talk about pathways. What are their interests? So it goes back to, what are you passionate about? Because it's the same emotion that you feel when you're being rejected and you're hurt or whatever. You just don't have a team anymore. And most of the people that come on, it's not because they want to do this career pathway or that career pathway. They miss the locker room. They miss coming in here on Monday mornings, and I get up there and I'm saying, da, 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 da. Okay, have a great week. Like they have some structure, they have timelines. We have deadlines. There's accountability. There's humor, So I think it's just like providing, and Caleb Thornhill was a big inspiration to this, because theoretically, and this is only for professional athletes, but like we're revenue sharing with our college student athletes right now. Like if you were a dictionary, if I said, what's a definition of a professional athlete, what would you tell me?
Yeah, we wouldn't. Well, now you would have to say it includes a lot of college athletes.
That the technical definition of a professional athlete is a paid person for that activity or service. So they're clearly professional athletes. But the problem is, we can't onboard, 130 times all the 21 times, all these sports times, whatever, all the crazy numbers of people will not have the blessing to just, I could get off this call and go in there and have all the resources I need and feel much better about my day with the pack. So basically trying to help people with that similar modality of just resource, just at a much, much smaller scale. So I still feel that I'm impacting people because we're like-minded. Like when you say purpose use, like all of my stuff is based on passion, impact, and servitude. Like we're 66% basically aligned. And depending on how you granularly dice up the word servitude, we're probably more than that. But like those are things that I believed in before I met you. And that's why we have cultivated this friendship for so long, because we're so involved in those types of emotional responses towards activities and outputs, that passion is the number one driver for me. So it's always trying to find out what their passions are, getting to know them, and then like being authentic and vulnerable, letting them know it's okay to not have it all figured out. So a lot of the stuff we talked about today, they will know too, that it was tough for me to transition, that it's okay to not know what you want to do, how many different career paths, how many different companies I've been, how many different teams I've worked for. It's okay. Nothing's not okay.
Well, yeah, and look, your servitude is my application, which application is a word that has to be generic, because everybody's way they apply their passions and impact is different. The way you apply your passions and impact is through servitude, and that's what Turnkey Athlete Services does, right? Is creating this community of opportunity and connection and experience for talented athletes looking to transition from being an athlete to being professional, right? Absolutely. Whereby they can find a career path for themselves.
Correct.
That in turn potentially serves other athletes. So it's kind of like athletes, the locker room is elevating the opportunities for other athletes. And so exactly that's what really resonated in it for me, and it's going to be brilliant to see how that
I know, I'm
continues to
excited.
grow.
We got some killers, man. We got some killers that are jumping aboard. So that's a cool thing. It kind of keeps you young too. Like that's why I've always said when some of my players, like Mike Williams was one of my receivers, and he would put together like a curated like hip hop playlist for me with like modern stuff, like so like I knew like the hip hop. So now that my son's 11, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that Little Baby is. I'm good. But like it's because of players, like, and so if you disconnect yourself from the youth, then you're going to get old, so like,
yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's not all about the moisturizer, right? It's about the energy and connecting, who you're connecting with. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and if we're honest, it's getting enough of that to net off against the stress of parenting, which also keeps you young and makes you old at the same time.
Amen. Well said.
But all right, look, we're gonna close out with
cool.
a few quick fire questions, kind of coming back to you. And this is one of the few opportunities that we this is okay to humbly brag, right, at this piece, if there's any of those answers.
Sure.
Okay, 3 words. If you would think of three characteristics that describe you at your absolute best, what would you say they are?
Teaching. When I'm teaching, I'm at my best. When I'm regulated, that means I've slept, I'm not drinking, I am able to process normal situations normally. I would say that when you're regulated, you're going to operate from a place of control and poise, and you're calm, and you can execute more regularly and more routinely from a place of regulation. I would say communicative. I'd like to set up plans. I don't like to be late. I don't like to disappoint people. So I feel like when you take a lot of blows to the head, you need to make a lot of lists, So there's lists everywhere. There's lists every phone, So I'm talking, Tori, so what time are we picking up? Okay, got it. Oh, what's going on here? Like just trying to ask an extra question, just understanding how helpful that can be in the corporate space because, we have our emails, we have all of our different things, the routines of just getting in a good communicative pattern, a professional level of communication, how that looks is important. Like when you're helping people with their resume and like, why is this word better than that word? And from your experience, because I've been in the workforce quite a bit longer than someone who's 22, so just think communicating clearly with my wife and anybody I'm working with, any colleague, player, just the communication element is so critical because when your emotions and passions are involved in these things, if there's any ripple in communication, there could be a disconnect and that could lead to resentment and that could lead to a loss,
Yeah, I so one of the things I love about those 3 in terms of how they fit together is teaching's the vehicle, right? Teaching's the thing that enables you to embellish the servitude, embrace your passions, drive the impact. That's the vehicle. But in order to teach people, you need to be regulated yourself, right? So you've got to take care of yourself. You need that control. You need that poise. You need that presence to even show up for other people to be able to teach them. And the bridge between the 2 things is communication, because you need to be able to communicate effectively with people, to connect with them, to set clear goals and expectations so they know exactly what it is they need to do and where they're going to go, and that you've asked all the questions. And so those 2 things fit brilliantly, actually, in our kind of me, we, world impact model, because regulation is taking care of yourself. Communication is engaging with the we, so ultimately you can teach and elevate opportunities for others.
Exactly. And just listening to you, it kind of like the communication part of it, just think about this, like if you're not regulated, is your tone of voice going to be able to have the intonation and the kindness and the softness to it? Or am I going to say, hey, Mark, what are we talking about today? Or, hey, Mark, I'm excited to talk to you about something today. Like there's a big difference, even though you can say the exact same thing. You know what I mean? So if you're not regulated, you get up there, you're like teaching, okay, we got Fox 2 double go, you're just talking through the play. It's not, listen, we got a great play today versus single safety man. It's Fox 2 double go. We're going to be right, we're going to hit this down the left boundary, so you're excited, you're teaching different because you're regulated, right? But you said the exact same thing, you've installed the same play, but like tone of voice is very important with communication. You know, the way you're teaching, your modalities, the visuals, the auditory, the intonations, the visuals, you know, the video, all that stuff. You're not going to, if you're not regulated, you're going to bare minimum that presentation.
100%. What you were saying there was like Japanese to me. But the way you were saying it, right, was energizing and engaging and everything else. I as you know, I'm not a football guy, so I'm
that
like,
was a long, that was
literally
short,
another
language.
language.
That was the shortest play call I could come up with too for you too. You watch some of the games on UFO with our wives, and they're long. You know, they're like McGeoghan's up there, 15 syllable play calls. You know, that's just the way it is for me. But I tried to give you a short one, rugby guys.
Oh, I appreciate it. I love watching it. But you try to get me on a play call, and there's no chance. I'm just like, yeah, well, he went over there and he threw the ball there.
I even left I left the formation off. I just gave you the protection of the play.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, there you go. So much for me to learn. So much for you to learn. All right. Last thing, mate. Look, it's been an awesome conversation. I guess if you wanted to leave a key headline or a key message with the audience, what would that be and why?
I would just say, believe in yourself, surround yourself with people that will pull you up. And when you get up, throw the ladder down for others.
Absolutely love that. That is 100% obviously in alignment with everything that Purpose Fused and Connected with Purpose is about. You've got to do what you need to do to achieve those possibilities for yourself, which includes surrounding yourself with the right people. And once you get there, even if you're on the journey, bring other people along with you. If everybody did that, the world would be a much better place. And because of that, I think that's a very nice way to end, Phil. Always great to catch up. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And maybe see you this weekend.
I'm sure I'll see you this weekend. I saw your boys last night. They were that's the highlight of my night. Good kids.
Oh, good. I'm glad you looked after them for me.
I did feed. I helped out with the feeding process. We had a little fun, but you know, Tori and Bobby do a good job.
Yeah, they do. We're talking about surround yourself with good people, right?
Amen.
All right, mate. Well, we'll have them listen to those last few seconds of the podcast.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I care about.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.